regular city council meeting and the public hearing of the governing body of the city of Blanco to order. Roll call, please. Present.
Present.
Present. Thank you. Next, we are going to have our invocation by Pastor Carlos Floyd.
Mayor, City Council, thank you. For all those attending, thank you. If you'll bow your heads, let us be united in prayer. Almighty God, we want to thank you for your amazing grace. We want to thank you for this community. We want to thank you for the people, your farm leaders. Together, we pray, Lord God, for your direction. We pray that you give us your mind, your heart, and you give us the wisdom as we discuss things that we might differ in opinions on them, that we might treat one another with respect, and that we would guard the community that we live in, the people that have shared and loved and served together to make this community what it is today. We pray, Lord God, that you would guide the discussion, give us direction, and together we pray a blessing on each other, on this country, on our leaders. We pray for our troops that are deployed around this world, our first responders, like law enforcement, and their families. And we thank you for the freedom that we have and the stewardship that you give us now. We pray all these things in the mighty and powerful name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge.
Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are going to move on to announcements. First, I want to wish everybody a happy spring break. And next, the City of Blanco remains on stage 2 water restrictions. We currently have a vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Interested parties should fill out the application, which can be found on our website, and submit it to the city secretary. The back party at Hill 300 will be having live music tomorrow night, March 15th from 6 to 8. The first Blanco Market Day of the year will be held March 18th from 9 to 4. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Walk Across America starts on Sunday, March 19th. Teams are encouraged to walk the 832 miles it would take across Texas in 8 weeks. Senior Services Expo will be held on March 31st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the CRC in Johnson City. Keep Blanco Beautiful's 23rd annual trash off and 16th annual Blanco River cleanup event will be held on April 1st from 9 to noon. The city's trash off event will be held in conjunction with KDB's event. The city yard will be open on Friday, March 31st from 9 to 4 and on Saturday, April 1st from 9 to 2. A voucher will be needed for entry and can be picked up at City Hall during business hours. The city's event is only open to city residents. The county will have its annual household waste collection day on the 4th Saturday of April. Music in the park at Yet Park will be on April 15th from 6 to 10. Gates open at. And lastly, the Lavender Festival will be held from June 9th through 11th. We're going to move on to public comments. And we have no regular public comments. So we are going to move on to the proclamation. The first proclamation is authorizing recognition of National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas the City of Blanco is committed to providing a high-quality emergency communication system to the residents of the city, and whereas the City of Blanco recognizes the professional and unending services of the telecommunicators who answer 911 calls on a daily basis, and whereas the 911 telecommunicators are the link between people calling for help in an emergency situation and the emergency response agencies who arrive on the scene, and whereas The 911 telecommunicators are the true backbone of the 911 system, and whereas the President of the United States has historically acknowledged the second week of April as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and therefore be it resolved that on behalf of all of the telecommunicators in the city of Blanco hereby declares the week of April 9th through the 15th, 2023 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and encourages all local governments to sign a similar resolution, and all 911 emergency communication centers are encouraged to celebrate this with appropriate activities and commemoration. Next, we have the Child Abuse Prevention Proclamation. Whereas preventing child abuse and neglect is a community problem that depends on involvement among people throughout the community. And whereas child abuse and neglect not only directly harms children, but also increases the likelihood of long-term physical and mental health problems, alcohol and substance abuse, continued family violence, and criminal behavior. And whereas child maltreatment occurs when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and do not know how to cope. And whereas the majority of child abuse cases stem from situations and conditions that are preventable in an engaged and supportive community. And whereas child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure each family has the support they need in raising their children in a safe, nurturing environment. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships are created among social service agencies, schools, state communities, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and business communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Rachel Lumpy, Mayor of the City of Blanco, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of April to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in the City of Blanco, and call upon all Blanco citizens, community agencies, faith groups, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live. Next, we are going to move on to the public hearings. And first, we have the approval of two short-term rental LG River House 1240 River Run. Bruce Gill.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bruce Gill. I live at 1468, which is about 700 feet from the applicant. What we're here to hear tonight is to balance the interests that are competing. On one hand, we have the local residents, all 100% between Mesquite and River Run have the objective to this SDR. On the other hand, we have outsiders who want to come and get a taste of the rural life that we enjoy every day. The third group is the people that want to profit from offering to the a taste of the rural life. Those profiteers are the applicants here. In order to balance the competing interests, the city has passed a SDR ordinance, short-term rental ordinance. I filed a supplemental protest because there were a number of issues that arose in the PNC, and I wanted to address those. First of all, is one of the balancing issues is the 10% rule. I.e., the city says we will not allow more than 10% dwelling units in a citywide neighborhood or a geographic area to have SDRs. I chose the geographic area because the area on River Run, Fulcher, and Maine all parallel the White River. Right now, on that geographic area, there are 10 SDRs. Is one at 20 Mesquite, one at 600 Fulcher. There's 4 at Riverside Cottages, 4 units off the Riverside Galleries. Those all existed prior to the SDR ordinance. In order to support those 10 SDRs, there would have to be 100 homes in that geographic area. And the applicant, you would have to have 110 homes. Right now, there are only 20 residents on those 3 roads. So right now, there is 50% of saturation. Okay, sorry. 50%, which well exceeds the 10% rule. And so that justifies a rejection of the application. The people in the Weber subdivision, which includes my house and the place where the applicant, there is a deed restriction that says property in that area will be limited to single family residents. Now, at the PNC meeting, the question rose.
That was the 3-minute time.
You're kidding. Can I just finish this one point? Okay. At the PNC meeting, the question was, does the city ever consider deed restrictions? I would point out the fact that in December of last year, the city adopted an ordinance 2022-05 that says that if we're seeking to vary a plat, you're required to submit your deed restrictions. So the city, in fact, does consider deed restrictions when it makes decisions. Probably something that I've protest. I've only gotten through a little of it. So in any event, we would ask that you deny this application for SDR. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jeff Holmes?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Holmes. My wife live at Oak Street in Weber's. We purchased our home because it location, charge, and immediate area. Other factors were considered. We're having our own commune, no homeowners association, and close proximity to the state park. We are here tonight to join with our neighbors to strongly oppose West Michigan, located at what property located at 1240 Upper Bluff. Last week, our neighborhood spoke against this SDR at the PNC meeting, and the PNC board denied the application. The majority of the neighborhood is speaking, and it's sincerely going to see council consider most of these opposition. Most of us have been here for well over 10 years, both the character and integrity of our residential neighborhood. We strongly oppose SDR to change this. We respectfully request that you vote to STR. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Margaret Kaufman?
Okay. There. Okay, I'm Martha Goss now. I live at 1374 River Run, right next door to this property. We have enough trouble on River Run already. Speed, beer can, the ducks, the 7 ducks last week, like automobiles, probably. And we don't need increased stress. There's a lot of just people driving by because it's a pretty dry. And the swimming hole down where it gets that close to the water is free. You can't get into the park. It attracts a lot of people. People come from Fredericksburg. The increased traffic that even 1 3-bedroom house, which is what is being built, it's not sustainable. We need help on that road. We need speed bumps, all kinds of things. The other thing is we have an issue with who do we call if there's a problem. The road is a county road. The property is in the city limits. Do we call the sheriff? Do we call the Plano police? I called about the ducks, and I was told by the city police that it was the county's road, that they should do something about the ducks. I called the city, and they said they're not responsible for the county road, and you can't get a hold of anybody in the park. They don't answer the phone after 4 o'clock. So if there's a problem next door with renters, who do we call? I want a phone number that I can personally get hold of someone that will respond. Anyway, we don't want an STR next door to us.
Thank you. Chris Herbo?
Hi, my name's Chris Turbo. I live with my family at 1104 Fulcher Street. That's a couple of houses up from 1240 River Run, where they want to do the short-term rental. We've been there 18 years. We absolutely love our neighborhood. It's a quiet, pretty area. All the neighbors help and look out for each other. And, I mean, I can take an occasional interruption in the quiet. You know, that's just life, like traffic on a holiday weekend or construction being done on the water treatment plant, because I know that's temporary. Scary thing about a big vacation rental in our neighborhood is that that's a disruption to our way of life. It'll be temporary, it'll be permanent. Vacationers constantly coming and going from the house on our blocks are sure to increase traffic, noise, and litter. I've always taken comfort in the fact that the deed restrictions for Weber subdivisions state that houses can only be used as single-family dwellings. But then last week at the P&Z meeting, I learned that y'all aren't going to take deed restrictions into account. So I'll trust there's a good reason for that. So I was thankful to learn at last week's meeting about the guideline y'all have of not going over 10% of a neighborhood for a short-term rental. So for our neighborhood, there's many different ways to slice it up and decide what is a neighborhood, but we've always thought of it as if you include that new structure, I count 8 houses. If you go, that's from the dam in Flat Rock all the way downriver to the water treatment plant. So that'd be 8 houses, 1 out of 8, which would be a short-term rental, which clearly goes to over 10%. If you want to go a little further, all the way to Mesquite Street, that's 1 more house. Then you're at 1 out of 9, it's still over 10%. And if you want to go even further than that, you can run into another short-term rental there at Elm Street, so you're still over 10%. So you'd have to do some pretty creative gerrymandering to come up with any scenario where granting this permit wouldn't take us over 10% on short-term rentals. So I thank you for your time, and I really hope you honor your own guidelines of denial establishment.
Thank you. Karen Timmons?
I'm Karen Timmons, and I live on the other side of the short-term rental. We've lived there about 11 years. During our term there, but so, as everybody knows, we have a lot of people come to Blanco and they enjoy the river. It's great. The park doesn't hold that many people anymore, it won't allow that many people, so it's free to go down to the flat rock and enjoy it, and that's great. But those people don't just stay there, the folks that come, they stroll up and down our street. Some of them even have camped across the street from us, started a fire, everything. A couple of our neighbors, including my husband, had called, no matter who you call, whether it's the city of Blanco, county, the park, everybody says, that's not my territory. I don't know who takes care of it, or if they do drive by, they basically just drive by and say, they're fishing, there's nothing we can do. So we really don't want to have an STR right next to us, and everybody knows that we do want vacation. When an STR isn't just to go down the flat rock to swim, it's to build a bonfire in the back and basically stay up and cruising until 2 or 3 a.m. And that's not what we want in a community. And we want to deny this short-term rental. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Reeves.
We should get time, dispensation, couple. Some of us. Once again, thank you. I don't.
Tuesday, March 5.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank
Tuesday, March 14th, 2023, Blanco City Council meeting. Later, council members for reviews. In 2010, we had the resources to purchase the 1.21 acres of land and the existing structures in 1204 Fulcher. In 2012, after retirement, we moved up from residence to Blanco. That is now our current address. We know we're legal owners, however, we view ourselves as caretakers of the land. Okay, thank you. Not just as residents, but as caretakers of the land. Since we moved here, a lot of things have happened in Blanco. Some are good, some not so much. The property in question tonight, I believe 1240 Fulcher, was recently sold to Green something or another. Sign. Quite really sure what it is. A sign is shortly posted thereafter, which most reasonable people would believe what family residence was being constructed and would soon be sold. You can imagine how shocking. That we learned it was to be a short-term rental property. Well, we found out for sure when we received a notice via return received requested on February 23rd, 2023. That meeting is going to be held on March the 6th. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Planning and Zoning Commission in Blanco, Texas. We have heard that there may actually be more than one STR next to our house. Trailer houses next, I guess. In our small little area, we have single family homes only. Many of us are retired. Peaceful environment is what we see. I think that is covered by the founders and the deed restriction. We live in a small area, develop close relations and look out for one another. Last thing we share is the belief that we are caretakers of the land. Please send a message to other developers that our history and the fact that we want to remain a private area. One more thing, please. My
college economics professor was Dick Armey, once the Speaker of the House of Representatives. When I took his class, he said, if you don't remember anything from this class, remember it. It's all about the money. If anybody tells you it's not about the money, they're being very disingenuous or they're growing broke.
Thank you. Wayne Cosman?
Good evening, council. My name is Wayne Gosnell. Martha and I live at 1374 River Run, which is immediately next door to the proposed STR. We've owned that property for 26 years. I'd like to echo the sentiments of all the neighbors that have spoken to you here tonight. And simply put, we do not want this STR in our neighborhood for all the good reasons that you've heard. I will not reiterate our first letter that we submitted to P&Z last week. You have that in your packet. We submitted a second letter just for council, which you should have been given today. But suffice it to say that we do realize that the city of Blanco is not in the business of enforcing private deed restrictions, although you do require private deed restrictions in your planning ordinance. However, the city is supposed to take actions in accordance with its own ordinances. An approval of this STR permit would not conform to that mandate. P&Z voted 4-1 to deny this permit application. That was a supermajority vote. The applicant didn't even bother to appear before P&Z, indicating a disdain for the city's entire permitting process. One of the P&Z commissioners expressed a belief that the requested STR would meet at least one of the city's criteria, that being that it would not constitute more than 10% of the dwelling units in the neighborhood. So last Friday, we asked the city for a map to recognize neighborhoods. And of course, there is none, meaning that the definition of that neighborhood, block, or similar geographic area that's in the ordinance is open for interpretation. So I direct you to table 1, that is our table that is inclusion 1 on our March 13th protest letter, a table similar to that developed by Mr. Peel. The table suggests 4 different definitions of neighborhoods, from very small to very expansive, that is in our area of the town. And it gives the percentages of short-term rentals that would result in the event that the proposed STR is approved. In no case, if this STR is approved, would the percentage of STRs be 10% or less as required by the city ordinance. Having said that, our major argument against the proposed STR is that it would negatively affect the tranquility and safety of the neighborhood for all the good reasons you've heard tonight. The city's STR ordinance requires the applicant to substantiate that the proposed use would protect the character and integrity of the neighborhood. The burden of proof is on the applicant to do this, and we contend that that cannot be done. So the bottom line is, will the council tonight validate planning and zoning supermajority recommendation to deny the requested STR permit, or will it ignore your own engaged citizens and support the owner of the property who does not live in the city and did not even show up at the P&Z hearing? We respectfully request that you deny this permit application. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to our second public hearing. Approval of proposed amendment to the Planned Development District PDD ordinance providing for the Seven Oaks Planned Development District. Dan Murrah.
City Council, I want to remind you of 2 things. I don't have any notes, so this is going to be brief and not to worry about the timer. But in about a month or so, it could be potentially a completely new council, or majority of the council. I ask you to slow down on all these things that are coming before you. Just be patient. There's no hurry to do any of this stuff. There's a lot of people don't want a big deal going on in the middle of town where there's no access. Retail and apartments, and it's just, there's no, you can't hardly get down the road as it is. So just don't get ahead of yourselves. I would ask you to listen to the citizens that voted you in.
Thank you. Jack Willie?
Council, thanks for the opportunity. I'm Jack Tully. Although I'm not a resident of the city of Blanco, I have been a resident of the community of Blanco for about 25 years this year. And I'm here tonight to support the proposal and offer by Mr. and Mrs. Turbin for 3 acres to the city at no charge, and their proposal to build affordable housing for the remainder of the acreage. I see no downside whatsoever to the proposal. I see affordable housing. I see no taxpayers' money for a new location for potential city home. I see increased tax revenues for the city. I see increased revenue for the businesses within the city. So based on those 4 issues, I highly recommend that you support their proposal. Go for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail McClellan?
I'm Gail McClellan. I live at 1510 Green Lawn Parkway. And I strongly disagree with Mr. Twilley. Affordable housing is one of those buzzwords like, let's keep Blanco like it's supposed to be, which is long gone. Affordable housing is in never land in today's world. But I was at the P&Z meeting and they continue to emphasize that this is a concept that they want to have passed. Well, and I may not understand this right, but I'm just going to throw out these numbers that I think I understand, and you may have to double check them. But if I'm correct, it's zoned R2, and that allows for 64 homes. Well, when you add up the 33 homes, the apartments were 17 apartments, the apartment building, the 71 apartments, and the 18 to 20 townhomes, that comes to 120 plus residences. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And the question was asked, oh, I'm so sorry. That's kind of scary. The question was asked, is there enough water? And the answer was yes. Well, there may be enough water on paper, but right now we don't have access to the Blanco River. And we may or may not have access to Canyon Lake. If anything could happen between here and the Canyon Lake water source. And we don't have enough water that's dependable. Besides the fact it's not raining, the springs are drying up because of all the building in our Central Texas area. When the Rockin' J went in and dried up all the springs on the ranches near them. We need to be careful because we don't want to, it's not fun to be without water. And we need to protect people, especially the citizens of this town, from not having water. And if you bring in 171 families, or 121 families, I'm so sorry, I probably added wrong. But they're not going to want to be without water either. And that's way too many people to bring into Blanco. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Rick Montalado?
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Rick Montalado, resident here in Blanco. I live on Elm Street, and I live right next door to this project. So, because if anybody would have a keen interest, it would be me. I mean, literally right next door. I've listened to a couple of meetings that we've had here in the town to kind of gather information. I've listened to some of the concerns and questions. I didn't understand the project. So I wanted to gather information, see what, how folks are feeling. And heard a lot of different things. A lot of it's just a sentiment of no growth, as a lot of the small communities have. The viable, what I consider the viable concerns, or what any development would have: water, drainage, and traffic. And those are all things that get developed as a project gets developed. We have statistics, we have data, we have studies done, that we have the water that's sufficient for our community and for our community to continue to grow. But I didn't understand the project, so I called the Hurdens and asked them if they would kind of spend some time with me to explain it, to lay it out. I said, sure, Rick, let me come over. They came over, bought the maps and laid it all out, and they threw them in the back of their truck and drove the whole fence line of the whole project and where it lays out. I even got a couple phone calls of people with the scare tactics. Rick, they're having the apartments right next to your kitchen window. You look out the kitchen window, you're gonna see the big wall, and none of that stuff is true. They laid it all out. The apartments were tucked away in the far left corner of the development. Has a nice tree line on two sides of it to shield it from the residents behind them. The other two sides face the community, and it's laid out nicely. The big thing is this development, it fulfills some of the greatest needs that we have here in Blanco. Number one is the need for housing. We just don't have housing in this community, and because of the multi-use that they're planning and putting together, it allows for housing for folks of different economic stature. And so it's a nice development. Once they explain how it lays out, the city facilities, the city park, the housing, it put relief in my mind as far as how it's going to be developed. I support it, and I live right next to it. I think it's a nice development, and it's going to put us prepare Blanco for future. We had hard folks say, well, the city council, the city chambers should stay on the square, and that's nice for the last 100 years. But this is an effort that will prepare us for the next 100 years, because growth will happen. But as its residents, it's incumbent on us to prepare for smart growth, and things like this will situate us to be able to have a nice growth pattern in our city and do it in a smart manner. Support it, and whenever you guys get down to council or down to make a decision, I hope that you will also.
Thank you. Mike Arnold?
Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. I want to echo what Mr. Murrah said about slowing down a little bit on this. I hope the hearing tonight isn't just to tee this up to pass it at the next meeting, but that there's actually a deliberation that takes place. What you're seeing, and there was a record turnout from what I understand at P&Z the other day, there's a lot of frustration, a lot of division in the community, and that's avoidable. It's a symptom of a lack of leadership that we've had here. Our comprehensive master plan has not been updated in 18 years. Now, some of y'all were in grade school, and I don't think, maybe Keith lived here then, I don't think anybody else did. That's a long time. And as you read the code, it's supposed to go back to that. That's supposed to be the picture on the puzzle box to help us make these decisions, put these things together. Without that, every big decision rises to that level of conflicting visions, and it gets very divisive. And you have somebody saying, well, I wish Blanco needs to be this. Somebody saying Blanco needs to be that. We can come together. We can develop a shared vision that everybody weighs in and subscribes to. We're supposed to do that. That's what's supposed to be the comprehensive master plan. And we can answer these questions in a shared, unified, cooperative way of what is our vision as a community for what Blanco needs to be in the future as this tsunami of traffic and development comes our way. And I would encourage not to pause until after the election, encourage to pause until we can come together in unity, develop and update the comprehensive master plan, have these conversations, hash it out in front, and then when questions like this come up, it's a lot easier. What's the best way to achieve this vision? Not what is our vision. This is a vision level argument that shouldn't be taking place. And I think if we do this, we can ratchet down the division, the animosity, and come together and do something that we can all be proud of. So again, I encourage you to pause, slow down and it doesn't have to be a costly or time consuming process. With right leadership, we can have this comprehensive master plan that the community buys into, that sets these things, this vision, so that we can move forward together as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Moses?
Thank you for your time. It'd be easy for me to walk up here. Everybody knows that I'm in the construction business. like to hand them a card and say, hey, I'll help you build, but I'm not. I'm from here. I don't like honestly, I don't like the density that this place represents. I think that the opportunity of having a combination of apartments, townhomes, homes, that's a nice deal. Like Gail, I worry about water, but I also worry about what comes out the other end. I think about even the addition of 100 homes covers a large portion of the remaining capabilities of our sewer plant. There's also a long list of residents that already live here, already have homes, were forcibly annexed under protest 12 years ago. They'd like to have some city services as well. Most of them are aging septic systems that require a lot of money and maintenance. They'd like to go ahead and take a switch over to the sewer plant too. They're also the ones that live right next door to it, get to see it, smell it, hear it. Be nice to be hooked up to it. As far as I understand, we're not telling the man he can't develop his property. Even if we don't switch the zoning. I think if you switch the zoning, it still needs to be tweaked because I think the density is too large for the area. Infrastructure is not going to handle it. The roads infrastructure obviously is a little tough. There's going to have to be some changes because there's no direct access at the moment in and out. So plans possibly viable for the future, not now. Don't think it's time. We need some work. Let's wait. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Moore?
City Council. I'm here tonight because I really believe that this development is going to put a lot of stress on the water system. We already have a problem with their water. And it tastes like chlorine. Most people buy their water to drink. We don't drink their city water. The roads are in terrible shape. And the funds, we only have the funds to patch them. We can't fix them, evidently. We're going to have to rezone for much of this PDD, which we really should not be looking at, I wouldn't think. Since you really resist rezoning anything else and everywhere else that we've been, even for an HOA. The entrance and exit is going to create severe traffic problems. This is going to create stress on all of our resources. And we don't particularly want our city to become Austin. Only those who will make money on this project will be for it. These owners put their property up for sale and couldn't sell it, so they devised another way to make their money evidently. I hope you listen to the citizens. Most of us, or many of us, do not want this development. But even at that, this has long-term consequences. So perhaps we should wait until we have a new council, or at least a full council, because we don't have a full council here tonight. So I hope you think long of this, have a little more study done on it, and present it back to P&Z so that we can look at it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Cox?
Hi, my name is Sharon Cox. I live at 43 Main Street. I'm here to talk about the proposed development. It's right on my backyard. This land has been in my family for many, many years. My grandmother owned the land that I live on now. But as many people have already said, the things I worry about are our water situation is critical. Even our city website states to conserve water because it's the most precious resource, natural resource, and we're already in stage 2 water restrictions. Another thing, our streets are in complete disrepair. There's hundreds of additional cars that would need access to this area and no clear access to 281 to get there. Our streets are not adequate to support this amount of traffic. It's going to present a huge traffic concern and a safety issue. Today at 2 o'clock, I was working outside and I counted there were 7 cars lined up to get onto 281 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So there's already traffic there. And with hundreds more cars, it's only going to be worse. From what I understand, the city doesn't have the money to fix the streets right now, let alone build a city hall, or to build or maintain a city park. I respectfully ask that you please keep this area zoned appropriately as R2 with no commercial and no municipal sites, just as the planning and zoning has zoned it R2. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the third public hearing, which is the approval of new short-term rental uptown Blanco Retreat House at 514 3rd Street. And there are no public comments, so we're going to move on to 4, approval of new short-term rental, Colin Myra Corbett at 1333 Sunset Ridge. There's also no public comments, so we're going to move on to item 5. Approval of new short-term rental, Aqua Blue at 413 North Street. Again, no public comments. Item 6, approval of new short-term rental, the Betty Blue House at 202 Hackberry Street. No public comments. And 7, approval of special use permit for a C1 zoning for 808 Main Street. No public comment, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Next, we are going to move on to presentation. Item 1, presentation from Bell Harris to check LLLP for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Yes, ma'am. Darla here with Bell Harris Mahachek, here to present your annual financial report. And first of all, we'd like to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to come in and perform the audit and all the help that the city staff gave us in doing the audit. It takes a lot of information to compile all of the data that goes in the report, and we really appreciate that. If you will flip with me to page 1. This is our opinion page. This is the page that we consider the most important out of the whole audit. You received an unmodified opinion. That is the highest level of assurance that there are no material misstatements and all disclosures have been made in the audit. So great job on unmodified opinion. If you'll flip with me to page 25. We're going to look at your revenues and expenditures for the year. And we're going to focus in on that general fund column. Total revenues for the year, $1,775,112. And I forgot my glasses, so I think that's $12 in here. I need them. Total expenditures, $2,199,271. You have a little bit of the other financing sources with lease proceeds, leaving you a net change in your fund balance of a use of fund balance of $374,612. That beginning fund balance was $1,072,759, leaving an ending fund balance of $698,147. One of the things that we do is we look at the fund balance and we compare that back to your expenditures. So what we would like to see in that fund balance would be about 3 months worth of fund balance in there. That's anywhere from 25 to 30% held in fund balance. And so right now you're sitting at about 32%. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention that your fund balance is about 32% to your expenditures. And if you will flip over to page 61. We're gonna look at the budget page. Now, we do on this page is we're looking at your expenditures and the actual expenditures, and we compare it back to your budget. So if you're looking in that far right-hand column, that bottom line, number, you'll see that it's at $63,575. That means that you came in under budget by $63,000. But if you'll notice over in your original budget and your final budget, it said you had a use of $719,000 of your fund balance. So although that was the budgeted amount of the use of fund balance, you actually used the $374,000. So going back to if the amount that was budgeted had been used, then you would be dropping below that 32%. Now, that's basically the three most important pages out of the audit. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. All right. So what we do is we compare what you actually spent. So that's in that actual column. And then we compare it back to that final budget. So, what we look at is really that expenditure area. So we're comparing what was actually spent to the amount that was budgeted. So although individually in each department, you had some overages, some shortages, bottom line area is you came in under budget by $63,000. Okay. So if you're going back to on the final budget of what was budgeted, if you're looking down to that bottom line with the net change in fund balance, what that is telling us is that whenever that final budget was approved, it says you're going to use $719,000 out of your fund balance. Now, that was not what you used. You used the $374. If you're looking at the number right to the right of that. So going back to if you had used the $719,000 out of the fund balance, then you would have it would be less than the 32% in that fund balance that we were comparing back on the other page. Yeah, I didn't do that calculation, but yeah, I just keep saying it'd be less than the 32. Two, I would say.
They were not using professional before.
As far as on the budget side of it, I think looking at that minimum budget, what the requirement for minimum fund balance would be making sure that you've got a policy that and everybody is paying attention to that policy in their approval process.
We didn't have that, it would seem.
I'm not sure before the 2020,
But we do now.
that you have a policy that you're, well, that's the reason I'm pointing out to you, that's making sure that everybody's aware of that amount that's in there, that you need to be paying attention to that bottom line fund balance.
Diagnosis is dying today.
Perfect. You have the required minimum amount. Yeah. Yep. Yes.
We are going to move on to staff presentation, and first we have City Hall by Mr. Everett.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, residents. Oh, that, hold on. There we go. Okay, so a month ago, we had that storm, the debris that got picked up. We had Waste Connections picked up. Rachel, we talked about getting it bundled, but basically if it was cut 4 foot lengths, they got taken care of. We also hired a local person to try to take care of the street right of ways in the park. So most of this is done. I'm not saying it's all done. As long as the storm debris still left, but we are working on it. We'll have very close completion on that. 281 overlay, that's been working on this about 14 months before I got here. It is going to go back to planning commission, that overlay process, and then it'll go to April. So, myself, the mayor, council members, Swinson, met with TxDOT, another citizen, Ken, I almost forget the names. But we talked, see TxDOT, but the relief route, what they're looking at is 5 possible relief routes that are already looking at, 4 being relief routes and 1 being big enough. So that is the process where we're at now. Probably a couple months will be TxDOT again, but they did tell us that early June they'll have an open house once again for the rest of the community. Ask questions. That's what we had last year. So they're making this progress. Payment restoration. About 1/3 of the quantities have been done. There may be more holes or more areas that have been completed other than that, but the actual quantity is about 1/3 complete as of last spring. So maybe a little over 1/3 now. 11th Street, that's actually done. So Stockhead is a more milling issue, or they took all except for milled it, and you can see that nice surface. That's in more of a saw cut type of wood, where they actually had to cut, take that out, take the spoils out, and saw cut it so that they actually put the filling in 6th Street. And 7th Street more of that saw cut as well. So you're going to see a combination of different things where either it's saw cut or milling on that. And then one other thing is, the main area that haven't been completed, they're working on 9th Street this week. Notice today, 9th and 8th. The problem children in the town, the ski now haven't been started yet. We did a little bit on the ski, but not a lot. And then that no name road, we'll have to work on as well. The issue of the ski is that base left. There's no like base in the actual street, so we're going to look at something different, probably mill it and then put a little more topic than we would some other way. So next month we should complete about a month, and hopefully I'll give you updates every week as we get the pipe milling. But once they got started and it stopped raining, it's actually been a lot quicker. So the next upcoming projects, 7 Oaks, they'll come back to planning commission in April, working with the developer on some different ideas, listen to everybody, trying to look at different things. It's really a development process. This is a process that it's just going to get approved. But there are a lot of things that we're going to look at. We're going to look at the traffic. We're going to look at some different options. As you just heard, the financials, you get the quarterly report that will out in January. In April, you'll get the next quarterly report. You're also going to get, you'll start seeing the investments that we've made. We have 3.5% to 5% where our money's sitting in. That's a lot better than 0.5% that had the years past. So financials are getting better. And then, as you just heard, 22 audit was wrapped up. We'll get that pretty fast on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have the police department, Lieutenant Burnkow.
Madam Mayor, Council, we included all of the monthly status in
I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. We are going to move on to the consent agenda. Approval of minutes from February 7th, 2023 special meeting. And item 2, approval of minutes from the February 14th, 2023 regular meeting and public hearing. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve items 1 and 2 on the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second? Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to new business. Item 1, consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of annual financial audit report and single audit reports for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022 by Bell Paris Patchogue LLP. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the annual financial report and single audit fiscal year September 30th, 2022. Bell Harris. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve the annual financial audit report and single audit report for the fiscal year ending in September 30th, 2022. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Grayhill has seconded. Discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. I'm going to do a little agenda rearranging, so I'm going to skip down to item 10. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of contract between the City of Blanco and Reinberger LLP for court collection services.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, President. We had used a different court collection service, but with going to software we have financial from basically it made the court collection basically have to use a different firm. And you as council requested that we do an RFP, so we did an RFP, and the only applicant respondent was at Weinberg. So I don't know. Information on that, if they're here. Go ahead and say something.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to speak tonight. My name is Karen Spring. I'm the Weinberg.
Rogers, in Texas, travel area. I'm representing over 2,500 government clients, specifically for single management solutions. We're honored that we had the opportunity to provide our information to you, and excited to answer any questions you have.
Thank you to the committee. I'm not sure you all taking this time to review that. It's not live reading material, and I'm sure there's a copy that passed around. Really nice to assure you that we can do this type of work for, well,
47 plus years.
yeah. On the defined parts in 2003, very faithful in the city, love you guys, long-term relationships we have here between years and people we have here personally. And I think it's a good job for y'all.
All based on all past jobs and
Correct.
Slightly more. Sorry. I was thinking it would be on page 18 of our audit. It looks like municipal first and super 1100
That sounds correct.
Yeah, and then the revenue from it.
That's correct.
This means that I've got. That's a possibility, or is that a pie in the sky?
Well, our service is free and don't cost us anything. I think.
Like you're on a level.
Well, I mean,
Are they gonna?
Okay, well, I think that, well, the angle that Billy and I are coming from is your prior collection, delinquent, these prior collections vendor. Didn't quite have all the resources that are coming out. We just buy and market each other. Rather than. Put in your budget according.
I would agree with that. It's also, it's also just a combination of things that we are hoping that. Just that they do a better job.
I just want to make sure that was both great. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I will move that we approve the contract between the city of Blanco and Linebarger liability.
Councilmember Grayson has moved that we approve the contract between the city of Blanco and Lineberger for court collection services. Is there a second?
Oh, sorry.
Councilmember Swenson has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank y'all. The following with y'all as far as actual agreement and some other documents or government kind of thing. No rush, but I mean those. And we used to be shooting at me, but Billy has to be
That was 84.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to go back to item 2. Consideration, discussion, to take possible action on approval of new short-term rental LG River House at 1240 River Run.
Mayor, council, residents of Blanco. This is an SPR. I've heard a lot about it. I want to just a bit of an update. July to permits to got Phantom later got Phantom approval to build a 3-bedroom home. As of today, they have not gotten a certificate of occupancy, nor have they asked for inspections such as electrical or plumbing or anything like that. So they're still in the process. Not that that matters either way, but that is just an update on the actual where they're actually at. The planning commission, P&Z, did look at all the information. Took a look at staff recommendations, also looked at how posting works to other STRs, and the decision that they had made was to deny the STR. So, questions to staff.
Is there a motion?
I would move that it's item number 2, right? I would move that we deny the short-term rental on 1240 River Run.
Councilmember McClellan has moved to deny the approval of the new short-term rental at 1240 River Run. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Smith has seconded. Discussion?
I'd like to make a couple of comments, and I appreciate the public input on this. The 10% regulation set as a guide, what I understand, in the current ordinance. And it's also my opinion that it's not the city's responsibility to enforce deed restrictions. I consider that to be more of a simple matter. But with that said, I'm listening to the public comments. And my support is based to my denial is based on this STR at 1240 River Road, is based on our guideline of 10%.
Any other discussion?
I think it's important when there are deed restrictions on property and they need to be met. And I appreciate all the input that has come from the neighbors, proposal. And given the request by the neighbors, and the deed restrictions, I don't think this particular short-term rental.
Madam Mayor, I'm gonna concur with both, Councilmember Smith and Councilmember McLeod. While I don't agree with all the rationale in the letters of protest, what I think they're trying to say, and what I think we have in Blanco is community and space. That's what makes us special. And I think what they're trying to tell us is they think that this would be independent, so that community, and for that reason.
So we had a motion and a second. All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We're going to move on to item 3, consideration and discussion only on approval of proposed amendment to Land Development District number 2023-0001, Project 7 Oaks. So just to reiterate, we are not going to be taking action on this item tonight.
Presentation one. So I'm gonna make a presentation tonight. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be listening to the public. We have been doing that, talking, going back and saying, talk to the developer, see some things that we can do, try to make the progress, the process of this and the impact less. I said, not to do a formal, because it's going to go back to planning commission, not to do. However, to reiterate that progress that building things, cities do, they look at that, and in order to make improvements, you have to add more tax come in, you have to sell that. And that's why we're in this, is we have to look at ways to improve this community. That's what we're going to look at. But I haven't heard the public, I do think that we need some work, so we'll do that. We won't recognize that applicant, but he can do it twice.
Yes, Matt.
Can you hear me now? Thank you. I do appreciate the comments tonight. I mean, I live in Blanco, we live in Blanco, and we still like it. My wife Martha and I have lived here in Blanco for 38 years, almost 4 decades in the city of Blanco, and we're going to can continue living here on the property itself. What we're wanting is 3.5 or 3+ acres of land in the city for a park and an administration building west of the PDD. And this planned district will accomplish this, and it will help eliminate also spot zoning, which has been a constant problem for planning and zoning. Now, we don't know, brokers come to Blanco, but brokers come to Blanco County. Nobody's moving inside the city of Blanco enough. And the city's losing its sales tax, it's losing its ad valorem tax. And at the same time, it's putting a burden on the citizens that are already here because of inflation. Last week, I presented this PDD concept plan, which included giving 3 acre plan to the city, to the Planning and Zoning Commission at a public hearing. They voted to table it for further study until the beginning of April. And at that time, to move it here to the council. You know better than Blanco is a general law city, and as such, you have to follow procedures for the citizens. Therefore, I respect this council And P and Z's motion to take on the state study of the plan, I ask that any of your valid questions be referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And with that, I look forward to your decision the next time you see me. Thank you.
Mr. Hurd, I have a question. I just have a question, if you don't mind. And the question is, I understand your encounter is going back to P and Z next month. Do you anticipate making any modifications to the current plan as submitted prior to that?
I have to see what those modifications are because if I said something now and I agreed to it, and we went back to P and Z and they said something different. And I agreed to that, and come back up here and I think we'll put it forward. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I think I have a question for staff. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Whoever owns this property, whether it's the current owners, I guess, or I understand, or whether the Herman sold it to the next seller, or buyer rather, by right, 63 single family owners built this property as a current zone. Correct? More or less?
Well, it's 64 for sure.
Okay, 60 plus. And the city has a legal right to provide those homes water and sewer services.
That's
Okay, so, because I'm very concerned about water too, but we will have a legal right to service whatever is developed there. Is that correct? Or maybe this is a question for our attorney. I don't know.
Before you answer, let me let you know, if we have a right, we actually have water capacity, then we actually have to serve, the homes, serve the development. So, we have huge about 400 acre feet a year. And we have through GRA 1,200 acre feet, both the pond and the river. Now, there's an issue with capacity is not the same as continual service. There are sometimes access on nature, things like that make that providing the actual water, that's providing the actual service. Sometimes there's a disruption, but we actually have the capacity. The answer is yes, we have the capacity now. The community doesn't have the capacity that actually could do a moratorium, but that actually have to be approved by council. Other everything just on one.
And lack of capacity would have to be proven. Does it state that ultimately that's measures our capacity, or that's
We
discuss? It's in half.
Don't believe I've got another question. To answer council's question, you have the exclusive right to provide public water service in your city limits. In fact, you adopted an ordinance last year that said anybody that wants to get water service outside the city limits got to agree to annex.
Right.
Okay, my question is does our current infrastructure, water storage and distribution center, does it support the number of homes in the current proposal?
Yes, it does. Or yes, it would. It would.
But it doesn't.
Well, if you're adding 120 homes, we actually have capacity. That what you're asking?
That's what I meant.
Yes. Yes.
What kind of zoning change required?
So currently it's an R2. And some of the give and take that will have to do with the developer is look at that zoning. But what their request right now is for the commercial, they want DC1. For the townhomes, I believe would be R3, and the multifamily would be R5. The quarter to third acre homes they have still will be fine within the R2, because that's 11,000 square feet. So you're looking at a mixed use, but the R2, certain areas will be, like I said, R3, R2. But there's gonna be some tweaking, or I'm gonna recommend some tweaking to the developer, before the May.
So you're saying that it'll be changed before it comes back?
They agreed to it, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Does it warrant a traffic study and automobile and pedestrian traffic issues?
So the PDD does require a traffic study. The staff recommendation at the time to require it at final. However, the P and Z wants to require it at the time of PDD. So my understanding was that, I won't speak for them, my understanding was that they were going to look at doing a TIA, a traffic impact analysis for the April meeting. Saying that incorrect, let me know. That's my understanding.
Out of curiosity, what's to happen to the urban home that is in the middle of that property?
I can answer that. Because it's called Seven Oaks. Our home, when we bought it from Arlen Benzo, donated the park to the city, we'd like to reciprocate. Sits next to Al Harlan Coke's home that was built there over 100 years ago. That house, our house, and the Seven Oaks around it will encompass 3 and 4 of the lots that I propose. So we're not moving, we're staying.
Did see it as a that were number 8 or something?
No, it's gonna,
Okay.
well,
No, I'm just curious.
I'll tell you more.
Or is it
At the P and Z.
some of these laws?
I'll give it, I'll take it to P and Z as well.
Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna look forward to Nancy's recommendation. I'll just say my thinking so far is, okay, by right, whether it's the Hermans or whoever wants the property next, and build 60 plus single family homes. And that might be fine. We might all be okay with that. My hesitation is, I don't know that 60 single family homes will serve many folks in Blanco in today's market prices. So a mix of different types of housing is interesting to me. And I would say, yeah, a long way to go.
Any more discussion on this item? We are going to move on to item 4. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of new short-term rental Uptown Blanco Retreat House at 514 3rd Street.
Has anyone voiced any opposition to that? I haven't heard any.
No. And there were no public comments during the meeting for that as well. Is this zone from people?
Is it already appropriately zoned?
So you're approving this STP, you're actually approving both for it to meet all the requirements, but STR doesn't have residential district. However, this being in the commercial, but it actually has residents around it. Like it actually does meet all the requirements. So normally we don't have STR. That's the crowd. That's
And just to clarify, the SUP would be revoked when the business is will last forever. When does the SUP get removed? Does it last with the property forever, or does it go with its current business owner?
goes with the current owner.
but subject to annual renewal. This permit is reviewed annually, which is not automatic. Obviously, if the city or someone else came forward with opposition to renewal, it would come back through the process. In the ordinary course, it would be automatic.
Okay, without coming back to council.
Correct. Unless there's some objection or some history of bad behavior on the property or something like that.
Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve, the new short-term rental, application for Town Lincoln House at 515 Third Street.
Councilmember Grayhill has moved to approve the new short-term rental at Uptown Blanco Retreat House at 514 Third Street. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Smith has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We're going to move on to item 5. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of new short-term rental Colin and Myra Corbett at 1333 Sunset Bridge. And this one also had no public comment at the PNC tonight as well.
The PZ recommended.
I have one question. Is this the same as the prior one where the permit will automatically renew, or will this also come back to us? Or will this come back to us?
They all come back, well, they all have to get renewed every year. That's only back to them.
It would only come back to council and PNC if there was some objection or some other history of violations. Otherwise, it would go through admin renewal.
Is there a motion?
Move that it be, approved, the short-term rental, application for 1333 Sunset Bridge.
Councilmember Grayfield has moved to approve the new short-term rental at 1333 Sunset Bridge. Is there a second? Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
I'm familiar with the location of this property, and I just wanted to comment, this is the kind of a short-term rental that would attract a level of clientele that would probably want to come back every year. And I think it would give a great, present a good picture of our community in Blanco. And then my report will be there.
Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to item 6. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of new short-term rental Aqua Blue at 413 9th Street.
Mayor, council, residents of Blanco, we kind of step backwards here and explain that sometimes the process takes care of a lot of things. Sometimes some things come out about the project as there's more eyes on it. It's one of those cases. I'm going to kind of walk you through what we want to do on this. Is someone submits an application with information on there, and they also give a site plan. And this was a situation where in making a recommendation to P&Z, we were going to approve it based on them having a site plan, and the person made certain assurances of this, but those assurances were incorrect. So, having said that, one of the council members sitting here correctly pointed out that this is actually a duplex, and the only way a duplex can actually have a STR is if the other A, B, and actually is owner. That is not the case. I understand it's a long-term rental on the side and an STR on the other side. Therefore, it does not meet the requirements of the STR ordinance. Therefore, we'll have to change that recommendation recommendation from approve to deny because of the complex on the property as an STR if it's not. I apologize for that nuanced issue in that I didn't catch it at first, but that is actually what happened. Questions.
The owner reside.
He's not local, Santa. He's got businesses here, but he is not residing.
I mean, like, if it was an owner and it was multi-family, then it would be allowed.
If it was owner occupied on one side and an STR on the other, then it would be allowed. Because it would just be like a normal STR, but in this case, you actually have two rentals, one STR and one long-term next to it, that's not allowed.
Consideration.
Then that's where you came as councils is, I mean, this is exactly the reason why, well, this is what you guys are.
Councilmember Smith, if I can add, I rewrote the ordinance today, specifically the duplex section. I have to thank Commissioner Alexander for bringing up, I think, in the PNP meeting that it was a duplex. But yes, specifically, we do not grant permits for STRs in a duplex unless the other side is owner occupied. Of course, the reason being may not be fair to a renter who's stuck there under the landlord's thumb, and there are people coming in and out on the other side. So specifically states that it's unless there's that lives on the other side. It has to be the owner. It can't be another rental.
No, it has to be the owners. You could not have two STRs next to each other, because then that would force a lot more than 10%. And as a guy, that would be multiple.
We need to take action on it.
The request, the question now is to deny it.
I will so move.
Councilmember McClellan has moved to deny the short-term rental at 413 9th Street. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Smith has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to item 7. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of new short-term rental, the Betty Lou House at 202 Hackberry Street.
Please recommend approval.
My only concern with this one is that there seems to be another short-term rental directly across the street. Although the general neighborhood is 2 or 3 and beyond the commercial.
So I can't speak for the council for the term of the, and when I looked at all these percentages, I look at category 1. So it's, again, the ordinance a little bit, I guess probably by design, it's specific. I would go, I review that's, I can see a 10% issue. But that's about, I can see a 10% issue.
Council could use a 10%.
Not necessarily, because those are the only 2 in the community. We haven't heard from any residents.
And again, the 10% of God.
When I drove by all the STR locations, this was the one that to me was most residential. One of the few that doesn't somehow interact with commercial, some kind of other zoning, but without any pushback. Personally, I think that's correct.
Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the new short-term for
Councilmember Draco has moved to approve the new short-term rental at 202 Blackberry Street. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Smith has seconded. Any further discussion?
I'm just wondering, has this facility been inspected? It looks a little one down.
Councilmember, have you been by recently?
I'm not going by today.
Seems to me it's being remodeled. Yeah. Quite a bit.
Well, thank you.
You tell them about places.
This property has been in our bank. I'm always grateful. It's and my salary, why? Now, perhaps when there's not a conflict of interest with the council to group, I'll show you the pictures. It was awful. It was not a condition that someone people living there moved out and I spent a long time renovating the home. Where is within the and it doesn't look like that fresh paint, but we spent a tremendous amount of time in refashioning the house. We put in 4 new air conditioners, not good. So it is done a tremendous amount of money work. And the other thing that stress that I know one of the concerns and some meetings that should be worked to discuss the income. And while that's why every home in terms of this credit for, and we don't want that either. We want to sit and we want this to represent what we feel like it's about, we made an investment in the home. And it's taken a long time. There and there's new things that we need to do before we yes, that's a key.
And then I did buy this all. Good AC, I'm up, oh my gosh.
It's ridiculous. Like, you can get so cold at that. We have not yet had an inspection. So we'll just want to go by and schedule that. Get that checked off the list. A long journey and but if you're buying a C1 truck,
Thank you. So we have a motion in second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to item B. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of special use permit for a C1 zoning for 808 Main Street. I believe this was tabled by PSA.
So, Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we follow P and Z's guidance here and table the following little thing and come back to this.
Councilman Craig has moved the table. This item until P&Z has time to review it more and give us a recommendation. Is there a second? I'll second. Councilmember Swinton has seconded. Discussion?
I've got a question. The current zoning on this property is in C1 now. It's C1 now. He's just looking for a special use permit to allow car in C1. Is that correct?
Correct, but the reason why you get people, there's questions about setbacks, and then you met that, and then some geometrics all on the space. So that completed information, they asked that it be tabled. But that's correct, it's C1 and they just ask for SCP.
And I think his application also per to DOT permits.
He stated at the meeting that he had, but I haven't seen it yet. You have a text off permit driveway permits. I haven't actually reviewed the permit to see if it's appropriate. Good afternoon. We'll double check it out.
And this will come back to April.
Yes, ma'am. People heard and then they can know.
Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to item 9. Consideration, discussion, take possible action on approval of supplemental environmental.
Mayor, council, this request is going to turn in more to an update on Swindle's minutes. But 2014 to 2017, the water plant wasn't upgraded. You see secret paperwork, about 6 or 7 violations. There were a bunch of violations the water plant, how that was being operated by the city. So in 2017, the public works director at the time turned in this paperwork. In 2019, there was investigation of TCQ to so normally what happens in situations like that is people they call something that current administration requested. They are going to allow for this Saturday. The reason why it's more of an update today is because I talked to Representative TCQ yesterday, and our city engineer followed that up. And there's things that were ironed out before they want the Saturday, because there's some other issues they want basically taken care of as well. There's a new person that's reviewing our application. It's brand new and but essentially what the step would be is it would be a backwash clarifier and then we are already spending money on the city. So in a sense, this won't cost the city funds. That's the knowledge that we have at this point. This will come back to either April, May, here, 10 on following whatever they ask. Are giving people questions to staff.
What is staff looking for from us today?
So originally, staff had was going to ask for approval of this staff so that we could bring this to TCQ at this point. Basically, just take this just like update and just giving you it's already on the agenda. Make sure that the public and the council knows what's happening, but we'll get back to the next month or two.
And just for clarification, the infraction that triggered this happened way before your time and ticket. It was
between 2014 and 2000.
Yes.
Come back to the detailed time.
But this mechanism is going to give us the opportunity to take that fee and turn it into something we actually need.
I'm going to bring it real quick.
Are we needing to take an action?
No, you're not needing to take an action tonight. The TCQ's going to ask for, they're going to want to deal with this next month or two. So whenever they get back to myself or Byron, we'll come back to you.
So again, are we looking for a table here?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to make the motion to table this, please.
Councilmember Brightfield has made that approval, the approval of the MTP with here. Is there a
Oh, sorry.
Councilmember Smith has seconded? Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move on to item 11. Consideration, discussion, take possible action on approval of moving court fund to general fund where the court will be classified as a department in general fund. Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are you today? Well, I know most of my reports are numbers on the page, so I want to kind of explain. So the first packet, I guess you all should receive is the budget adjustment, moving pretty much all the funds over to general fund. Currently, it's in its own fund, but when I started here, we had like 16 bank accounts. I wasn't dealing with 16 bank accounts anymore. We moved down to 6. So, and plus with the conversion of the QuickBooks over to fund you in the short period of time, like 3 months of meeting all departments over, now I have time to actually breathe and clean up fund you to make it look correct instead of just throw it all together. So what we're doing is we want to move, like I said, all the court general accounts, revenue and expenses over to general fund, kind of like how you see your monthly report. You have police has like -03, it's like 100-03. Council is like a 1 and go 2. So we'll just have 100-04, which is the court department. You'll still see everything per department. It just won't be in its own fund. So it's just moving from its own fund over to general fund where it should actually be as a department.
Seems like it wasn't so long ago, we were doing just the opposite, so that we could track income and outflow.
Right, but now, like I said, that was the beginning when we were implementing software systems. So until I had to actually merge banks, I had to keep track of that until we could actually do a consolidation. So now that I can actually move it over and keep it consolidated in the part department, we can actually stick it. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I have a motion that we approve moving the court fund to the general fund. Question.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve moving the court fund to the general fund. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Going to move on to item 12. Consideration of discussion to take possible action on approval of budget adjustment to sewer debt of interest to move to correct fund. So this is just a smaller version of what you kind of saw, but a different topic. We have an INS fund out there where our INS is reported, but again, with the conversion of QuickBooks on to fund you, like I said, I'm getting time to breathe and actually clean it up so you can actually see the reports correctly and record and show the revenue and expenses correctly. So when I was doing, I noticed the cleanup, we had 2 our debt service interests that are currently in the INS that need to go. It's for the sewer, so it needs to go over to the enterprise fund for sewer. So that's what the next package you have is just showing that I'm INS over to the sewer. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the budget adjustment to debt interest correct fund.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve the budget adjustment to sewer debt interest to move to the correct fund. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Discussion?
This is about cleaning stuff up.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Going to move on to item 13. Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of utility billing process. Ms. Rick. Okay, well, I'll get calls, all of us get calls from customers, and we've had past couple of months, customers really complaining, which is an issue of bills not getting there on time before the due date. Some of it I feel could be fixed internally. Some of it is the post office. I have no control over the post office. I can tell you the company that prints our bills, I can show you how it flows. So the company that prints our bills when it's bill time is in San Antonio. The San Antonio hub has to print those that day, they ship them over to Austin. So we have to go to 2 different big hubs, then it comes from Austin to Blanco, and then that's when it gets dispersed. So that is kind of a delay right there because I wish it would, I can't switch companies. That's another option. I tried to go to see if we can switch to another company, maybe in Austin. The software system we currently have, which is funding that we've all approved and have implemented over to, we only have 2 options. So we can't do it in-house like Folder used to do. That's not an option due to our software system. We can either keep the current billing people that we have at Suiza San Antonio, and one of the options is to make the in-house procedures more efficient and saving time to compensate for the mail carrying part, which I think we can implement it down to 3 days. I have sat with Warren and we can come up with a shorter time frame to where we can get them out quicker to the printing company. So that way we have a little more time for the mail people to get it to the resident. That's one option that we have. Or the other option is we could go paperless. Now you would save about $10,000 because you wouldn't have to pay the paper people, the billing people in San Antonio. You wouldn't have to pay them anymore. But there is a problem with it that I feel that would affect some of the residents. Is it would be paperless. We would have to still everything y'all know in front of you in the software system. You have to pay for it. You have to pay for each portal. Y'all approved a lot of portals, so y'all understand that. So this portal would be called the email and text option. And for the first year, it'd be $3,400. And then yearly budget after implementation, everything, $2,400. So again, you save $10,000 from doing the paper-wise as your company. But the catch is that it's a notification. So either the resident would get it through on their phone and it would say, if it would say your bill is due, the bill date, the amount of it is, and when the bill was processed. And then if you want to see the bill, it's not going to email or text it to you. That's all it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you about. Then you have to log into FastBill Pay, have your login information, go to your portal. Some of the residents don't even have the portal. They just like to come in or they like to have the bill and come in and pay it. So I feel to kind of get most of the residents, I don't think that's an option. To me, I would spend a little more money with the paper and try to do the in-house efficiency of us kind of speeding up our process and making it more efficient. So we give the mail people a little more time to get it to the resident. But I have no guarantee that that would still work depending on if there's a disaster or freeze or the mail people have a holiday and I can't. Questions?
I've got comments. I mean, you've done a good job explaining it, and I think you know, option A, option B. But probably did tonight, I work old school, and I like to see paper, and I have a follow them, and it goes in, and, that we could, co-mingle the two together. It still saves money, and maybe that's an option. But I have bought it, favorite with electronic system. That's the thing to me. Unreasonable change. So I guess I think I had sent Warren an email earlier that if postal delivery issues, then maybe we and try to mitigate a problem that we can't.
I do hear what you say about maybe combining them. We could possibly do that, and we do have the option if we chose the portal for the people who do want to get it text or notification and not a mail, we can set it up on their actual account. So that way, when we actually send the file over to the billing, they won't actually process, which will save on postage and paper of that portion. But again, I think I'm just going with what I've heard of the phone, most residents like their paper, just like you. So.
I guess we need both.
Yeah, I don't know. Quite a question, want to know. what I've been told by Sasha and everybody else is, so for example, the due date for late notices are up, right?
No, 15.
No, I mean, but the actual,
They
actual,
enroll for the system.
you have to pay by.
Yes, you have to think on it.
By the 10th, so if you pay the 10th, then the cost is one person. Start moving the date around. Makes everything late. That's,
So
That
you
is-
could change the date before you implemented it.
maybe a couple days, but again.
We can move the date if y'all choose to move the date, but to me, it's more efficient. I work with all of them hand in hand, so I'm trying to, like, implement this. I know where we can work to shrink down our time and make it more efficient, so we don't have to take long, so it doesn't affect anybody's day, because everybody's used to every day and when it happens and when it hits. So if we can just make our time, preparation time before those dates happen, so I have a little more time to get it to the billing department so they can get it in the mail by like 3 days. We could probably show up 3 days.
You say about 3 days in Blanco administrative office.
Yes.
And does that 3 days telegraph to the mail date? Or do they still have the same date to get the stuff out of their office?
No, it will, as soon as we send a file to them. So as soon as when we're done with our task, that day we send the file, we have up till 4 o'clock that afternoon. And that means that they'll print it the next day and get it out. So whenever we upload that file to them, that's the day that the next day they will print it. So if we do it 3 days ahead of time, then 3 days ahead of time is when they're gonna print it.
Make a motion.
So I just wanna, I know that you said that doing it in-house anymore is not an option. No, it's not an option. We don't have how the software has changed from QuickBooks to FundView. We don't have any files that we can pull that will list everything on a template, and so we can just start printing all of them. We don't have that option. I've called FundView to see if we could. The only thing we could do, and this would be a nightmare, we could process out. The only way we could do it is to go to each customer's account one by one and hit print. That, you talk about the bills being like now, that would work. Okay, and compared to the old in-house, the pricing is actually better? Yes, I actually did a calculation, I think, I don't know if you'll have to see it. I did a calculation of like next year's budget. If we started completely for USIO, is our billing paper people in San Antonio, for their postage, service, paper, everything they do. For next year's budget, we'd spend about $12,838 for the whole year. Now, if we went back to Olga, we have to do her time, how much postage we would use, and I have to up the current postage of 60 cents because it would have to go in an envelope, be on paper. We don't get the bulk postage that they do in San Antonio because they are printing paper. That's what they do. They get the big discount. We don't. So for Olga to do it, if we could, which is not feasible, it would cost $13,765.56. But there is a variance in there because I'm doing it at 60 cents. So if the postage goes up tomorrow, then it's going to go up from that number. So you're already saving money because we're using them over there. I just feel, this is my own personal opinion, I feel we should stay with them, and I really think, let us try to utilize what I came up with a plan and shrink our time, preparation time down to try to put that more window time to the mill.
Younger, got some file. So the second option, is that the 12,000, is that over spending, or is that going to be an additional cost?
No, that's already spending. That's already spending. That's calculated. That's what we're already spending.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no change to it. That's what, by the end of this year, that's what we have will cost spent for the book.
So what's being asked of us and what's secured in the problem?
I'm going to just say the cure to the problem right now is to let us try to be more efficient inside. if y'all want to keep the contract with the billing printing company in San Antonio, and I just try to fix it on our end to give the mail more time to get to y'all. That's my first, like I said, because a lot of customers here or residents are not going to like the email text notification and okay, we have to log into a portal with the whole mess.
I know you work with this office, but
I know.
they can't send it directly to San Antonio residents. Heard that.
They go by, I know with Sarah, they go by Hub, and because the company is in San Antonio, it has to go to San Antonio. If I could have got a company in Austin to print it, it would have been Austin here and it would have been moved, it would have been really quick. But since our software system we currently use only has one company, they're out of San Antonio. Is there much?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion in reference to utility billing process. Billing company as an outflow. They make in-house procedures more efficient and time saving to compensate that delays in experience.
Councilmember Smith has moved to approve the utility billing process to stay with the current billing company and to make in-house procedures more effective and tax saving to compensate for the mail taking long. Is there a second? Councilmember Grayfield has seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Item 14, consideration, discussion, and take possible action on approval of 6-month extension of General Mills contract in the amount of $1,200. And that would be April through September 2023.
So I can actually, I was like kind of through the line and see how things are. We started doing this just like most places with COVID. I understand how small our building is. That there are a few things to consider when you just extend this. Is it $200 per month here? The other thing is that, as you know, there's added time to the meeting because we don't have a place to go to for executive sessions and rest. And then the other thing is that Infomark helps us with the setup and chairs and all that kind of stuff. In our own building is a lot easier. It's just myself and Lori can do the setup and everything. So from the convenience standpoint, I think it's a lot better. I think it's something to consider. Maybe we go back to fire, or I understand some of the other issues of access and things like that. But this is something for you to consider. I was going to say we go back to
What's the current seat capacity?
41.
That we can count it.
Yes.
So everybody in the building.
How many chairs? 40.
Yeah, I think we set up 50 chairs. We added some more this evening, but
You know, I know there are occasions when, you know, there's gonna be a public hearing or something, some item that has particular public interest, where we need a larger facility. I know there are churches and other places in the community that probably, if nothing else, have better acoustics. I know, this has been good. But I think, I know I have a hard time hearing in here, and I understand that our online people have a difficult problem hearing.
I would be supportive of going back to buyers, but have the option of having maybe some other places available on those occasions.
One thing that's always bothered me about meeting here is that you have to be able to drive to get here, and it's not very central. The buyer's building is very central for everyone, and not everyone can drive. I've heard that. I heard at our last meeting that someone preferred meeting earlier because they don't drive, and it's easier for that to get.
I prefer the buyers, but we couldn't have gotten this crowd in there tonight. It's an issue.
Yeah, I also am concerned about the occupancy, but I know that at one point there was kind of a brief discussion about having like a outdoor speaker, or it can't fit into the building itself. Maybe we can.
If the city chooses to stick with the buyers, I will have a more permanent solution resolved by the next meeting with outdoor speakers. We'll remove the cables in the floor for the trip hazard. We'll make it more public friendly.
Because at least then if people on the swing could hear it, more. So that being said, is there a motion?
Do we have an appointment on file?
Yes.
And it's stated maximum of 41, and wouldn't exactly change the matter.
It's posted right now also.
The city submitted the application permit itself, so can that number be agreed upon?
I do not believe so.
I mean, maybe a lot of safety.
We've got to talk about that. Give you a guess. I would say though that there are going to be crowds, there are, should be having a discussion. Having the price not better. As far as capacity, we definitely talk to fire marshal.
I have a question for staff. Yeah, I mean, is Jim DeHills willing to work with us, or do we have to contract for 6 months? I mean, if we don't want to make this decision yet.
I think they will.
I mean, I prefer the buyer's building. I would prefer to save the $1,200. And I know we would save even more money, I guess, because the sound equipment is already set up and it could be handled in-house. So to see the advantages, just would be concerned about it asking.
It could be something where, staff would get that's me. And
The other concern I have, switching back and forth, that's kind of an impediment. You know, I mean, some people are gonna get confused. I have gotten confused. Almost ended up in the wrong place. So, no, I think there's guidance where people know where they're going. I'm flexible on it, but that's how I see it.
You know, I guess I'm in favor of buyers building as well. Consistently gives us an occupancy problem. I think we have to
Well, should we try it and then come back to Jim of the Hills if it just seems like it's not going to work out? I don't know.
Maybe explore other meeting locations that are bigger than the buyer's building, but more central and more.
Well, but at that point, you still have to break down sample. Have that expense coming back, so. I mean, the cost saving on this is just on there. Use preparation. It doesn't include staff, set it up, things like that.
I'm in favor of the virus building, but I am worried about capacity. We've had more than 40. So it sounds like that we all agree that the virus building is probably the better location, but we are all concerned about the blocking. So my suggestion is that for the April regular meeting, we try out the virus building with the new system, speaker outside, all of that, see how it goes, and then come back to this in detail. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we not extend the lease of Jennifer Hills, that open a line of communication with them about rescheduling or monthly meeting. We evaluate the fire building for
Councilmember Smith has moved to not extend the Jamaica Hills contract and to look into the capacity occupancy of the virus building and have the option for keep the communication with Jamaica Hills to potentially have other meetings in the future. Is there a second? Councilmember McClellan has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. We are going to move into executive session. Item 1, Texas Government Code, Section 551.021, 551.072, and Section 105, Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct confer with city attorney regarding Park Paradise utility easement agreement. Item 2, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, and Section 05, Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct confer with city attorney regarding legal issues associated with water treatment plant project bid contract award and notice to proceed. Item 3, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, and Section 105, Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct confer with city attorney regarding logical wastewater treatment plant operation and maintenance agreement between the city of Blanco and Hermar LLC and related issues. And item 4, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, and Section 105, disciplinary rules of professional conduct confer with city attorney regarding TCEQ, TDDES permit and related issues.
Okay.